Well, when I went to China, I drove around China several times on my motorcycle in the 80s. I could see what was happening. I finally found a stock market. There was no stock market, but they opened a stock market 1988 or so. On one of my trips, I went down, knocked on the door, and said, "Here I am. I want to buy shares because since I've been investing in stocks for a few decades." Found the stock market, started investing in shares only really seriously in the late 90s. It was impossible before that because I could see, I knew that someday if you'd invested in America in 1899, you'd have been very, very happy. Well, here it was 1999, and I could see the possibilities of investing in the Chinese stock market. So I did so, and I have been doing so ever since. I was once in China speaking, and I came across Tiger, and I thought it was pretty strange what these guys were going to try to do from a Chinese base. But I could see that they were very smart guys. They had a lot of drive and they had vision. And if they could do it, it had to be successful and it had to be a great thing to do. So there I was. And the same thing, I figure 50 years from now, my children will be very, very happy that I invested in China and that I invested in Tiger. You can ask me in another 40 years or so.
Yeah, very, 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 very interesting. I mean, like, again, I think a lot of people, whether they're in Europe or in the US, can't really appreciate the scale of China, just in terms of the population and the economy and the potential of where it's going as well. To what extent, with what we're seeing now in the world and the challenges going, I remember reading something you wrote once, which was that pretty much every country in the world has changed its borders in the last 200 years. So everything's always in constant flux and change. There's obviously many out there that believe that things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. What's your personal view as to what we should be expecting, or at least preparing for, with what's happening geopolitically around the world at the moment, specifically with what's happening with Russia, Ukraine, and the kind of escalations that are taking place right now?
Well, the Russian-Ukraine war is a little bit absurd. It really started because America engineered a coup in Ukraine in 2014, threw out the government and put in a government that was friendly to the US and to NATO, and that has led to the current situation. I mean, I'm not suggesting the Russians are doing anything right. Nobody's doing anything right in Ukraine, neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians, but somebody should have and could have figured out a way to solve this problem, it seems to me. Unfortunately, now the gates of war have been unleashed, and it's not easy to close that gate once you open it. And I'm afraid that this is going to continue to have repercussions in Europe, certainly in America, certainly in Russia. It's interesting, Roger, that not many countries outside of Europe are supporting the sanctions, etc. So much of the world either is saying we don't care about it, or it's not clear cut who's right or wrong. In the US, of course, it's clear cut. The Russians are horrible people. The rest of the world often doesn't see things the way Washington, D.C. does, fortunately or unfortunately. And I'm afraid this is another period like that, when many people are questioning who's right and who's wrong here. As far as I'm concerned, they're both wrong. This is an insane war. It's going to ruin a lot of things. And of course, it's accelerating the inflationary movement, which is already underway in the world. And the way to protect yourself from inflation, the best way is in inflation, the prices go up. If you own the things that go up, you're going to get rich. You're certainly going to protect yourself. And so that's one of the reasons I started this commodity index decades ago. And I have a lot of investments in commodities now, because I can see that the commodity bull market may have a long way to go.
Yes.
And partly because of Russia and Ukraine, because of the madness that's happening there. They're both huge producers of agriculture, hydrocarbons. I mean, they produce a lot of stuff that the world uses.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm flying this weekend. I'm flying back from US to London and then on to Warsaw in Poland, where I have been for the last 2 years with my girlfriend, like, you know, waiting out the pandemic. And when you see, I mean, like it just happened this week, you know, Russia cutting off all the gas to Poland, and immediately the difference in the actual fuel prices that are taking place right now as well. To what extent right now, given that there is all of this man-made turmoil that's taking place, so it's not even like, you know, like slow changes, they're happening immediately. To what extent is your approach to be looking at what you need to be doing to move into more those commodities that actually are like ending up having shocks put on them? To what extent are you like letting things ride out based on the fact that it's quite difficult to ever know exactly what the next move is people are going to be making?
Quite difficult? You mean it's not easy? Investing is not easy? I didn't know that. Oh,
well, maybe easy for you.
I'm glad you warned me. Commodities were in an up cycle anyway because of supply demand for a variety of reasons. Then along came gigantic amounts of money printing like the world has never seen, and borrowing and spending like the world has never seen. So we have to have a commodity bull market, it seems to me anyway. So I own the commodities and I plan to buy more. They're not going to stop printing money. When we start having corrections in the markets, the central banks are going to panic and print even more money. And we may have one last blow off in the stock market, and I do own some shares. I haven't started selling short yet, but after that blow off, I'm afraid we're going to have a horrible bear market, Roger. We've had bear markets throughout history. We've always had them. We'll have them again. And this bull market in America has been going on the longest in American history. It's 13 years now. Doesn't mean it can't go on 30 years, but it already is the longest. Stocks are getting high, inflation's coming back, interest rates are coming. So we're going to have a bear market again. And Roger, it's going to be the worst in my lifetime. 2009, 8, and 9, we had a bear market because of too much debt. Roger, since then, the debt has skyrocketed everywhere in the world, gigantic amounts. So the next bear market has to be a bad bear market. We've had them throughout history. They're going to continue, whether we like it or not, and the next one's going to be very bad.
Would you say that what was taking place after the global financial crisis, which was largely papered over through all the money printing that took place since then, that with the next bear market coming and the fact that the governments are running out of ammunition as to what they can throw at this, we're going to see casualties